Well, welcome everyone. I'm really excited about this panel today, and thank you all for being here. We're going to start off a conversation today about how we really do shape the future by scaling our business and our dreams to success. And to kick things off, we have a very, very special guest speaker today, who many of you have heard of, but I'd like to introduce her to you anew today. Her name is Princess Beatrice. Princess Beatrice is a patron of several charities involved in education and learning, preparing young people to flourish in this digital age, and regardless of their background or educational abilities. In 2012, Beatrice, Her Royal Highness, along with 6 of her friends, founded a charity called the Big Change Charitable Trust. And its role is to identify and support charitable projects and programs that help young people across the UK thrive. Princess Beatrice also has another day job. She is the Vice President of Partnerships and Strategy for Afiniti Technology. Afiniti is a global AI technology company which is all about human pairing with AI, and I'm sure Princess Beatrice will share more about that. She lives in the UK and London and promotes leadership of women and diversity in tech. One thing I'd like to add is that I had an opportunity to hear Princess Beatrice speak last year at Mobile World Congress. And yesterday I got to spend some personal time with her at the hotel. And I want to just add on a personal note that it is refreshing and inspiring to meet someone who is taking her platform in her life, committed to making a difference and to being that big change. So it is my privilege and my honor to introduce to you Princess Beatrice. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Kimberly, for that amazing introduction. I was also inspired by our conversation yesterday, and I'm so thankful that we've been brought together again for this section. One that is so important because fast-growing businesses have the opportunity to touch so many lives and impact so many people that setting the intentions to achieve success is something we all need to take seriously. I really appreciate this opportunity to be here with all of you and in the company of so many distinguished panelists and attendees at 4 years from now. When I look ahead 4 years from now, I imagine a day where some of you in this room will have built the most impactful companies in the world. The time for creating scalable businesses that are rooted with purpose has never been so prevalent. So I am thrilled to get the chance to touch on this topic today. As Kimberly mentioned in my introduction, I am Beatrice York, a grandchild of an incredible monarch who is a role model in my life, a steadfast queen and grandmother who inspires me every day with her courage to stand up for high values and ethics. I am also lucky enough to be the generation of women all working together to support one another. I am lucky enough to be speaking to you today through the lens of Women4Tech, looking at what we can do to move and scale to new heights within business and looking at multiple directions and definitions for what it means to be successful. So, what is success? The dictionary definition of what success is: the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. In today's world, we have so many aims and purposes. For me, what matters more than just this definition is the set of values and ethics and integrity that underpins these purposes. I am a member of the business community. I have a day job at Afiniti, an artificial intelligence and data analytics company, one in which I work to embed purpose as we scale is through the company culture, specifically through promoting women in leadership. It is true that promoting inclusivity and diversity has been proven to drive success in business and make them more profitable. But it is more than just that. I do it because I believe it is the right thing to do. A friend of mine sent me a cartoon on Instagram last night, which shows a little girl being read by a parent with the caption, "Skip to the part where the princess climbs the corporate ladder." Finally, the gender norms are changing, and this is being reflected in popular culture and social media. How I interpret that and what this means for me is that I have never been so enthusiastic about creating and working for businesses that not only have a positive impact in our global communities, but also ones which challenge our gender norms and enrich the environment and ecosystems we find ourselves in. In essence, creating a better world for us all. Like many of my generation, I believe that working to find purpose in our professional lives by embedding commitment to growth, but not at the expense of ethics, we can scale to new heights, far beyond the traditional lines of business, and build a holistic approach with alternative definitions of success. As a woman, we are all finding our voice in this world, and my personal journey has been one that brought me into the sphere of technology, working in artificial intelligence, and brings to bear my mission, defined by determination and commitment in leaving the world a little better than the way I found it. I find that my other work with foundations and organizations complement my work with Afiniti. It helps me view things in a different way. I am still just starting out on my career and looking to what our lasting impact can be by thinking through things differently. Therefore, I am also very much looking forward to learning from this esteemed panel later in the program. Some of you may know, more than being Beatrice York, a daughter, a sister, and a businesswoman, I am also dyslexic. And as such, I look at things slightly differently. I look at different ways to approach the world. The letters on the page became something so different for the adult in me, which has led me to be the entrepreneur who hopes to look at things differently. Impact and the scale of the impact of not only my own life, but that of my company's interactions can be enriched by values that touch more people along the way. That is the heart of what I would like to touch on today. We all have a different approach to what success really looks like. For me, a successful business inspires others with their determination to find value driven from a whole host of activities. As you might imagine, growing up with strong role models in my mother and grandmother, who were always working to achieve great things for the communities around them, and while also attending a single-sex school, and all being called out for one view or the other, it was not until I entered the workplace did my understandings of the role of women play in business suddenly dawn on me. Slowly, the gender norms started to make themselves known, and in doing so, created an uncomfortable environment for my passionate problem-solving determination. This started to make me think how, working for a technology company, I could begin to make a difference in challenging gender norms, especially when it comes to technology, an area that has a reputation for being the boys' club. Empowering women is essential in creating jobs, growth, and innovation. For a company like Afiniti, working with large corporations, we need to not only mirror, but inform and empower them to reach new heights. Economists have long evidenced the fact that diverse organizations are up to 20% more profitable. Leading tech companies in the world cannot afford to ignore half the population. To unpack this, I truly look at the scalability for company growth. We need to look at unique place in the world we find ourselves in. For a long time, the position of women in leadership has been at the community level. We find ourselves now needing to look to those community pillars to gain the resilience and agility to withstand the speed and unknowns of the fourth industrial revolution. For me, this was one of the most important issues I wanted to make sure we was focused on as we grow the company I work for. I am lucky today in the audience are some of the mentors and friends who have supported my work. It is thanks to company culture that I have been able to do my work and also find fulfillment. This company culture, which I am building together with my friends and colleagues, is in my mind what truly creates success. At Afiniti, RAI is improving lives, improving human interactions, and creating better experiences for people in society. It is human beings that make the world go round, not money. In my mind, money is not the only way that measures success. For our company, we wanted to create a space and the conditions around behavioral change. We are not by any means perfect, but I am able to champion the opportunity for women in leadership. And our focus is working. In the past year, we've increased the number of women in our business from 15% to 30%. We have made greater progress in other areas too. Across Afiniti, we represent 18 countries in our workforce and have an amazing, rich mix of people in terms of background, religion, sexuality, race, and we are stronger for it. Building workforces in global companies by investing in other cultures and constantly listening to every voice can be heard. To be successful at this scale, it is not a one-model-fits-all approach. We have to appreciate local cultures and allow everyone to feel comfortable in who they are. One of the key issues we pay close attention to as we're scaling is the potential biases and ethical issues that can be caused by a lack of diversity. Technology always reflects human biases, values, and judgments. And that's why it is essential to have people building technology companies who represent a diverse society. To be successful at scaling businesses, we need to be steadfast in what we believe in, with strong values and ethics. These factors influence how individuals and communities behave. And if we want social transformation, then we need to not only identify, but more importantly, change these underlying behaviors. Stability is another important factor in scalability. If we can continue to provide stability at the scale, we can achieve our goals. I have been lucky enough to reach a point through the diversity in the roles in my life, so I look at things from different angles. And I would encourage this behavior in all of us here today. Don't always take things at face value. Before I close, if there are just 3 things that you can take away with you today, let them be these. First, let us always understand that success and scaling for success is not just about creating businesses which make lots of money. It is about building and scaling the right set of values and ethics and integrity that underpins the financial success of a business. Secondly, let us not forget the opportunity we all have to make a difference in this area, and indeed, that we have the responsibility to further this mission. We all need to support those in our business who are working to make things better by getting involved if we can, by giving our time, energy, and enthusiasm. And finally, despite the enormous progress and strides we've made, let us never forget that there is still a long way to go and that we need to keep working on this. If we do, if we keep challenging perceptions, working together, and supporting each other, then maybe, just maybe, the fairy tales will end differently. Princesses and anyone else in this room can reach the top of the corporate ladder, and we can scale businesses successfully through embedding purpose and values. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Awesome. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. Another round of applause, please, for Princess Beatrice. What a perfect way to start us off on a subject about scaling for success and making sure that we remember in this room and every room that scaling purpose and values is the beginning, middle, and end of that process. Thank you so much, Princess Beatrice, for bringing that so squarely into the room. And now it is my privilege to introduce some other esteemed panelists and speakers to share their wisdom with you today. If I could ask you to come to the stage, please, our panelists. You're welcome to sit under your names or wherever you'd like to sit. It'd be great. Allow me to share with you who's on the stage. There is a chair for Princess Beatrice. If you'd like to join us, you may come back up or stay where you are. It's your privilege. I did not realize, but by all means, you're welcome. Who we have on stage here is an illustrious group. We'll start with Mitra Best. Mitra is lead principal, strategic innovation and technology, and head of big bets for PwC. Can't wait to hear more about that. We also have Sandra Arevalo, who is the founder and CEO of Wiser, or Wiser.co. We have with us in the middle Roberto Ascione, who is the CEO of Healthware International. We have Betelhem Dessie, founder and CEO of iCog Labs and Anyone Can Code. And Ute Konig-Stemmler, who is the head of business development for Visa Central Europe. Give them all a round of applause, please. Mitra, I'm going to come back to kick things off with you. If you would, I've shared your name and title, but if you could actually take a moment or two to introduce yourself to the room, a little more about what you do, and kick us off really with some context here. What is it? What does it mean to scale our business to success? What's this subject really about and not? And what is the frame from which we'll be speaking today? Mitra?
I'd be happy to. And thank you, Kimberly, for putting such a fascinating panel together and choosing me to be on it as well. So thank you for that. My background is in computer science, so I'm a girl who codes, and I've been that for a long time. My role at PwC is to lead our strategic innovation and technology, which means that my team and I focus on building tools and models that fundamentally transform the future of our business and those of our clients. So that's why it's called Big Bets, because they are really big bets. And so far, we're very successful in focusing those bets on scaling the solution. So back to Kimberly's question of what is scaling the business, my experience at PwC has always been around how do you scale the business there. But I came to PwC via 2 startups that I founded and had successful exits in. And so I can speak from both sides of the model here of startups and big corporations, that scaling and growth are very different things. And oftentimes they get conflated and you use them interchangeably. Yes, what they have in common is that they both refer to increase in revenue. But growth is when you increase your revenue and at the same time you have to increase your resources and your cost at the same rate. So if you have, if you increase your client base, you have to increase your people to serve those clients at the same rate, which is great. And everybody needs to do that in terms of growing. Scaling is a little bit different. Scaling is when you increase your revenue, but your cost base basically is flat or just incrementally increased. So your margin gets a lot bigger, and that's why your reach gets bigger and you're able to basically scale. In the last 10 years, we've seen technology play a very, very significant role in scaling businesses. And I think that, of course, I come from a technology point of view, so I have a little bit of a bias, but I think everyone can agree that we've seen scale, unprecedented scale in businesses because of technology. And if you embed that in your business model from the beginning and think about your talent pool as a mix of people and technologies, think about robots in factories, think about algorithms that are fueling marketing and sales, think about sensors in devices that are creating data and services and products. Think of those as artificial talent and mix them with the human talent to create a business model and a workforce that can scale. That's going to enable you to scale. And we can go back to discuss more examples.
Great, thank you. Sandra, let's go next to you. As I mentioned, Sandra is founder and CEO of Wiser.co or just Wiser. So I look forward to hearing more about that or you sharing. But I also know that you wear multiple hats, as many of us do. And another of your hats is as an angel investor and part of the Angel Investor Network here in Barcelona and beyond. So I'm going to invite you to maybe put that hat on and talk about the same kind of question about what does scaling mean through the eyes of an investor? If we're all looking for money and partners, what does that mean through those eyes as well? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you just made a perfect introduction to that because you were mentioning revenue profitability at the scaling phase, and this is, of course, honey to the ears of the investors. So basically, scalability is very important. It's critical within the decision process of an investor because only scalable businesses are really attractive to put money on them. And it's not only about the size, as you were mentioning, it's about profitability. So it's having a business model that it's already nailed and a product that has this fit on the market. So we take very seriously the evaluation of these two aspects when we are evaluating the deal. And then this needs to be proven within the time. But at the end, business angels are there because they start to invest in the initial phases of the startups, but they want to make a business. It's not an angel that just wants to put the money there. So profitability is very critical, and only scalable businesses are going to make the returns that investors are willing to have.
Well, that's an important piece right there. So next we're going to go to Roberto Ascione. Roberto, you stand as one of the coveted, elusive target, a brand who did it, who went from startup to scale, global, and back again from what I'm understanding your diverse journey. Please introduce yourself and share a little bit about what you've learned from that journey and what you can share with the audience.
Sure. Thank you, Kimberly. And good morning, everyone. So I'm Roberto Ascione. I'm the founder and CEO of Healthware. At Healthware, we apply innovation and technology to improve healthcare. That's basically what we do. So we work in what today is defined as digital health. This comes back about 20 years. I grew up in a family of doctors, and I was also passionate for computer science. So I was coding just by myself with little things at age 14 or so. And then I went to the medical school. And then while studying as a doctor, I found that everything was analog, as we would say today. There was no single computer and nothing. So I started to think at some point in time, wait a minute, I can't do part of what I'm passionate for life. So I said, I want to combine these two passions, right? And so kind of looking around, I started to have a thought. Said, what if instead of being a doctor, the chances are I'll be a good doctor, I'll have an impact on a few thousand people, I start to write software for doctors so this impact can be much bigger. So I was very happy with this idea. I was going around telling this story, and people were telling me, Roberto, great, but just do the doctor. Computer science, technology, and medicine will have nothing to do together, so better you go the old way. So what you do at 22, 23 years old, if you have these kind of thoughts, you found a company. Today you would say startup. 20 years ago it was just a company. So Healthware was healthcare software, writing software for unmet needs in the healthcare space, whether it was on the patient side, on the nurse's side, or the physician side. Guess what? For the first 5 years, we were selling almost nothing because nobody was interested, especially coming from the south of Italy, where I'm coming from. So thanks God, things changed, and people started to see this kind of intersection between technology and medicine. And then 20 years after, we enjoyed a team of a lot of people spread across Europe and the US, and this vision of kind of changing healthcare for better. And there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but we are just in the beginning, but the beginning is great. Really, technology is able to transform medicine. And maybe we'll elaborate a little bit more about later what this means as it scales. But I would just close this first round by saying, if you think that today you can do a lot with tech about travels, about banking, about sports and music, all sort of things, still in healthcare you don't know what you to expect. If you have a condition over a year time, you see your doctor a few minutes, and in between almost nothing. There are still waiting lists, all sort of things which are fairly unacceptable in this age of tech. So we basically kind of stand against this and strive to apply technology to solve these healthcare issues. That's what we basically do every day.
Great. So, Betelhem Dessie, all the way from Ethiopia. Betelhem, as we mentioned, is the founder of iCog Labs, Anyone Can Code, and other things. I learned yesterday with my time with Betelhem, Betty, that she's working on some pretty impressive things already in her young company and young career. So I look forward to hearing more about that. But just like Roberto represents kind of the before and after, you are really right in that sweet spot of the conversation of a 6-year-old company who's beyond startup and looking at every one of these questions and issues that we're talking about. So I look forward to hearing more about how you think about this subject.
As she introduced me, I'm from Ethiopia, a country in Africa. So the company I come from is called iCog Labs, which does AI and robotics development. We basically export the software, meaning we take clients from outside of Ethiopia and we do works. We had clients like Hershey Chocolate, Sony Music, and one of our very famous projects is the Sophia the robot, in which we had part in developing the software. So it has been 6 years since iCog Labs was established in Addis. And for the past 3 years, I've been working with iCog Labs, and then we were thinking, how are we going to scale? How are we going to get big? But in a country like Ethiopia, where AI is, it's a new thing, not only in Ethiopia, but also in other parts of the country, but it's also new for the education institutions, the different people working there. So in order to scale our company, we needed a lot of talent. We also needed a healthy competition so that different people, different investors would be interested in these types of products that we're doing. So we started working on 2 projects, namely the iCog, anyone can code and solve it, in which we train little kids as young as 8 years old to get into coding. And also a competition in which we invite different people to attend trainings and then build their own startups. Because in a developing country, talents don't usually come to you. You have to go to them, look for them, train them, and incubate them. So, and this will help us first get customers for the products that we're going to do in the future, which in scaling, revenue is a big thing. And we are also trying to bring a healthy competition into the market by bringing a lot of startups and also bringing people and investors from other countries who would be interested in these products. So I started coding on a very early age. I started coding when I was 9, and I thought, okay, this is something that is interesting to do. So I have partnered with the iCog Labs on these projects, and we're training kids. We're also doing competitions and incubating startups.
Great. And last and definitely not least, Uta Konig-Stemmler, Head of Business Development for Visa Central Europe. You represent a very prominent global brand that we all know in the financial services industry. You work with many thousands of companies in this sweet spot. What have you learned and what can you share about scaling?
Well, heading business development for the Central Europe regions gives my team and me a primary focus and objective: scaling Visa business in the region and identifying new business opportunities. So we're doing it in different ways. We're doing it with existing partners in existing business areas, but of course, we're also looking for new partnerships and for new business areas. But what is really key for us, for our company, for our business, and for our partners is our amazing network. We are connecting more than 3 billion cards with more than 46 billion cards with 46 million merchants in more than 200 countries globally. So this sums up at the end in 165 billion transactions a year, which are processed reliable, secure, and innovative. So we are a network, and we have, through this network, the ability to connect. And we renewed our proposition, our focus on emerging partners, because we think that the network brings something very valuable to them, because they can scale, they can grow with this network. And it also makes the network itself more valuable, because of all these new commerce experiences taking place there.
Wonderful. Awesome numbers to get to work with, actually. Again, I'm going to refer back to Princess Beatrice's remarks that meant so much to me yesterday and again today, because we're talking about the fundamentals of scaling, and we want to dig a little deeper about what does that mean you're going to face. Scale or not to scale? Is that essential? I don't think that it is. What do you think? How do you know if you're ready or not? And as Princess Beatrice invited us to imagine, how do I make sure that I'm scaling purpose, values, culture, the things that really is the heart of my business, not just my numbers, but my essence? Let's dig into some of that and talk about how do you know, scaling the business itself, and scaling purpose. Mitra, I'll come back to you.
So I think back to the definition of scale and growth. Not all businesses need to scale. Most of the brands that we all familiar with that are strong and not born in the last 5 years have been there from steady growth. So to answer your question, Kimberly, I don't think scaling is a necessity for all companies. And the sweet spot for scaling is what we call sort of that, in the US, that mid-cap business of between 10 million to $1 billion of revenue. that's where you make a decision to scale or not to scale. And I think the decision is predicated on a few issues. One is, do you have a product fit? Does the market really want at the scale that you're imagining the product that you're selling? Most of the businesses that fail, actually 75% or more of the businesses that fail because they've prematurely tried to scale. They've tried to scale before their time, before they've proven that there's a market fit, or they don't have the right talent mix, or their culture is just not ready for scaling. They don't have a unified purpose, and the organizational structure is flawed. So those are some of the reasons why I think it's important to make sure that you have those prerequisites in place before you make the decision to scale. And I wanted to just say something about what Sandra said earlier about from a VC perspective. I think it's really important to know that if you're VC funded, that VCs are looking to get return on their investment, right? And they know that sweet spot, depending on the industry or depending from investor to investor, that sweet spot may be different. It's all about timing. So if you wait too long, the investor is putting out more capital and they don't want to. They want to hit it right when it's supposed to, and they don't want to do it too soon. So in the early stage startups, the funding, what investors look for are that promise of the dream, of the product fit. Later stage startups, you better have your product fit confirmed, and then they're looking at your operating model and your business model for scale, to your point.
Absolutely. Do you want to jump in on that?
Yes. No, I think it's, I love this point that you're making, that you don't have to scale. It's not mandatory to scale. It's not for every company. And it has a very clear, sometimes people's thinking, maybe there is a decision and it's a possibility, but I don't know. No, I think it's very clear, the point when you can make it and you have to make it. Because if you don't make it and you are growing well, and if you're growing, you are out there. Your competitors are looking at you. If you reach the sweet spot and you don't do it, your competitor is going to go for it and you will die. So you need to be very clear on the signals when you're ready. And I would say there are three main components which are very critical to scale positively. And this is something that I've been talking with some of the referents of the Barcelona investors community. I'm part of the Women Angels for STEAM, that it's a network launched to promote female entrepreneurship in technology, which they are investing locally in Spain, and from Rising Tide Europe, that it's in later stage startups in Europe. And some of the reflections that we were having are about money, people, and speed. So basically, the reason for having the product market fit is not only having the fit, but having the technology to be able to push it in the market fast. And some of the analogies that they were making were about, it's like getting ready to drive your Ferrari. You need to go very fast, so you better have all the bolts in the right place to avoid just a big disaster if you're not really ready. Of course, you need the people to be there, not only be there and support the idea, because this is the energy that you need from the team when you are in the early stages, but also to have the expertise and the focus. It's not anymore to have people doing everything, that it's very good to do this and that, because we need to adapt. When you are scaling, you really need to have the focus. And for investors particularly, it's very important to assess the ability of the entrepreneurs to raise money, because usually you need tons of money to be able to scale at the right speed. And going with the VCs is not only a good push to get the results that they're looking for, but they know how to do it. They have been supporting companies that have scaled before, so they are even a very good source of knowledge for you to guide the process if you can manage a good balance of investors. And there is also a selection that you need to do that they are going with your goals and your ethics and your value on the road.
Uta, I can tell you want to jump in too. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. I cannot more than agree on Mitra and what Sandra said. Let me summarize it and amend it a little bit from my perspective, because we are having this, you know that we're having a big, huge fintech engagement program in place, and we are having a lot of conversation, talks and discussions with startups, and it always comes back, I think, when it comes to the question, do we scale, or let me say perhaps we want to stay relevant. We can also say that. What do we have to do every day? So I think it comes back to 4 points. First one is leadership. Do we have the right leadership in place for running this company in the future? It's a huge difference building up a business with 3 friends or then having a team, lead a team with 30 people in different environments. That brings us very closely, and by the way, it's about talents, and it's about culture, it's about diversity. I cannot be an agile company without being diverse. Yeah? I have to do much more than self-confirming myself every day with my peer group, so I have to be diverse. Anyway, then we're coming to the next point. Leadership was the first one, the next one is execution. Do I have the processes in place? Do I really stand complexity with my company when I'm getting bigger, when I scale? And then the next one, and that was what you were also referring to, Mitra, was about strategy. Do I have a product? Can I develop my product in the future? What is about the competition? They're not waiting. So can I take myself to the next level? And at the end of the day, it's about cash. I really have to rethink. All my decisions I'm making have an impact on my cash flow. This is something I can't forget and I have to deal with every day as a startup.
Okay. Roberto, when we were speaking earlier, you shared with me some of your journey about scaling your talent. And some of the things that Uta specifically just said. Can you share a little bit about how you got there using these principles that we're describing?
Yeah. So first off, I'm still learning, I have to say. It's every day, it's a new discovery. And when we are fortunate enough to add the new people, new team members to the various teams, it's always something that is a little bit different. So I would like to ask something to the audience. Who believes that team is key to the success of a startup company or any company? Okay, so almost everyone, right? So a team is made of people, and every person as an individual is different each other, right? So if a team is the sum of the parts, then every single team is different. Every single company is different, okay? And I think this is as obvious as important, because the product market fit, of course, is super important. The money, kind of VC money is super important, or other kind of money, and so on and so forth. But the way you apply those principles to the single individual team, aka the company, is very different. And I think a big part of the success, any way you want to define KPI-wise success, because success can be bigger impact, can be bigger revenue, can be stay relevant, transform something, right? There's different kind of success and different kind of scaling, but it's all about the team. And if it's all about the team, it's different from time to time. So I think there's a lot of work needs to be done in applying the principles in the unique way that every single company needs to. And this is something that I've been learning over the journey. Of course, there are people that are with me since roughly 20 years, but many others that have come and gone, and somebody that even has gone over the years has even come back later, which adds all a different dimension to this journey. And what I was starting to say, I still learning every day, is because everyone that joins the team adds its own dimension. And that changes a little bit the balance, the nuances, the chemistry. And if you want to keep scaling this team, you need to acknowledge this. And this goes across, of course, goes without saying, nationalities, orientations, and everything else that makes this great diversity. So I think that's super important to me in scaling this concept of really one size doesn't fit all. So we really need to see how this applies, let alone in different markets, in different countries, but we'll not go there in the interest of time. The other point I want to make about scaling is, and especially true for startups, I guess, and especially true in healthcare, you're going to solve an important problem. So there are a lot of things that I see. We run also a corporate operational venture arm called Healthware Ventures. So we're going to see a lot of startups, right, in the inception. There are a lot of smart ideas, cool application of tech, which are useless, are not solving any one problem, right? And that will not go anywhere. They could be good for learning, good for as an exercise. They will win awards, because sometimes they're cool, but won't solve problems, right? So I think a huge, very, I would say, obvious recipe to scale is solve an important problem. And important mean either a big problem for a tiny group of people or a simple problem that affect so many people. That's especially true in healthcare. There are so many things, so many unmet needs, in different ways and different shapes and forms. So that's why also we need so much entrepreneurship in the healthcare field, because it's the only way we'll make it work down the line. And I predict this 20 years of hard work to be done and many more startups that we need there. But provided you basically try to solve some, unmet needs and real problem in the community.
I loved what you said, and I just want to sum it up in one sentence, that it's really important when you have a diverse team. First off, it's really important to have a diverse team. As Uta said, you can't be in an echo chamber and think you're going to make progress or innovate. You have to have different voices. But it's really important to unite that diverse team on a purpose. And that purpose is tied to your purpose and your mission as a company. And that's what's really hard about scaling a founder's vision when the company gets big, is if you don't start when you are 10 people or 30 people or 50 people with that really strong purpose and vision, it won't stand a chance to even grow, let alone scale. So I think I love the points that you made on that.
Yeah, and I also want to add about the team, because the team is what makes a company. And when you make a team, I think you need to think about who is in the team, right? What kind of people are coming into my team and developing my company? Because when you're scaling, you're also making a huge impact on other people. And especially in the field of AI, a lot of people say that AI will take our jobs. AI is evil. AI is this. AI is that. But I would say the people who are making the AI are important. The people who are in your company that are reflecting their ideas, reflecting their cultures, reflecting how they think on your products is very important. And there is this very famous example, which I was also talking to Mira about yesterday, and it's about a word association. So men associate to women, right? So you'll have men to brother, then female is to sister. So when you put doctor in it, the word association, the female would come to nurse. But it doesn't necessarily mean all females are nurses, right? Females can also be doctors. So this is the bias that we're seeing in AI and, of course, a lot of other fields. So I would say when you scale your business, when you're thinking about like bringing talent in, also think about what kind of people you're bringing in. Are there women involved? Are they people of other races? Are they people involved? How are they involved? So I want you to think about the team that you're building and how diverse it is.
Love that point, as we discussed yesterday. And I want to underscore that whoever is behind the intelligence being programmed brings their lens with them. We think that it is objective, but there is nothing in the programmer that is objective. And the diversity has a natural checks and balance so that what you have is whole and real and reflective. So really important point, and I want to come back to that. But Sandra, one of your other hats is Wiser. And I know that you work in flexible talent, which it's all about the flexibility now. The fact that I can do my job anywhere in the world has changed my life from anything that my family ever knew. So let's talk a little bit about scaling, since we're talking about talent and team. Talk a little bit about what you know about flexible talent.
Sure. What we are doing at Wiser is basically connecting people that is willing to work in different modes. It doesn't mean to be a freelancer, everybody, but just to have a better combination of your work with your life and how to put all this together to be able to grow sustainably also as a person. So for us, it's very critical to go with the companies right from the earliest stages to understand that you don't need to grow only building an employee base, which is going to take you out of competition very fast with your fixed cost and with the lack of talent that you may have, because you can't pay very high salaries at early stages. So we see talent and flexibility as a way to accompany the growth of the startups. And I was just mentioning before how critical it is to have the right expertise when you are scaling. It's not only about growing a team and willing to make it work, but really to have the right talent at the right moment in the right subject, let's say. Something that is happening particularly in Barcelona is that we are one of the first 5 innovator hubs in Europe. But in availability of talent to grow those companies, innovative companies, we are in the 49 position. So what's happening? There is a big push to have more people coming to work in Barcelona and building up or upskilling the community in technical areas particularly. But I challenge this model because I don't think it's sustainable to be fighting for the tech talent in all of the innovation hubs that we have, not only in Europe, but globally. So our mission on the more evangelization side is just to make this reflection. Why are you not including, for example, more remote talent, remote teams? Why is everybody having to move to these places, increasing the cost of living, etc., that you see happening already, instead of just tapping to the talent pool wherever they are? What you want to have is their talent, their expertise, their knowledge, and even their availability. You could have companies running 24/7, just having a distributed workforce in the different time zones, instead of willing to have everybody in the same physical space at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's basically our vision. We were last year with you here receiving the Women4Tech, the Hack the Gap prize, not only because this is important to women, but to technology companies in general. But we think this is also opening opportunities to have more diversity and to really be able to tap into the best talent independently of the gender or the race or the geography where they are based.
Right. Well, I'm so excited about all these topics that I could start a whole other panel on what we've just said. Uta?
Yeah, well, what Sandra was saying was a little bit about partnering when it comes to talent, getting people from the talent pool, because you realized yourself that you don't have the right people in place. And I think partnering is a big issue for scaling itself, not only with regards to talent, also on how to attract new customers and how to evolve products. And I think partnering, bringing stakeholders together is really, really elementary. And we had a panel in Frankfurt some weeks ago where I had startups on the stage, and they were completely committed to this partnering program. So this was a subscription startup called Mitra Technologies. It's in Scandinavian a company, and they have partnered with the biggest banks in the Nordics, with Swedbank and Danske Bank, and this is what they brought them to the next level and really to scale. So coming back to partnerships, I think this is really, really elementary.
Great.
So I want to just extend what you said, Uta, and what you said, Sandra, about partnering and tapping into the talent pool. So on the partnering bit, it's not just important for startups to partner. It's important for people like me in positions in large corporations or partnerships or companies to partner with startups. Startups actually give us more agility. So it's not just a one-way benefit situation, it's a win-win proposition. And on the flexible talent network, I want to just mention how important it is to have that on-demand talent pool. One of the main reasons startups fail, other than not having a product market fit, is they get bloated with talent when they don't need the talent. They overhire and they sit on the bench and you're paying for them, and then you have to lay them off because you didn't, make your business. So I think it's super important. The other one is overfunding. I know that sounds really strange to have too much money, but I will tell you from my own experience and as a receiver of too much money and as a giver of too much money to other companies, that the discipline that it dissipates and it erodes, it actually is a recipe for disaster. Believe me, I will tell you, and if we have time, I'll give an example of a couple companies that failed because of that. So I think the partnering is both ways, so don't sell yourselves short. You are also, as startups, enabling big companies to be agile. And then tap into that on-demand talent pool, both for startups and big companies. We're doing it at PwC, so I don't see why a smaller company wouldn't do it as well.
We have 5 minutes left, so I want to actually give you an opportunity to maybe bring into the room, we can expand this a lot further, what it is, your last thoughts or just food for thought for our audience. I want to start with you, Betelhem, and I do want to say it is possible to overfund. I personally have never received too much money, but it is possible what she just said. Betelhem, we'll start with you.
So I also want to add how the ecosystem that either the government or different institutions are building so that these startups or these companies can scale and thrive. Because these ecosystems can create competition, which I think is very healthy for scaling a business. Seeing others do better things and seeing them excel in different situations, I think could help a company learn more and scale into a better business, in which in my country, such as Ethiopia, we're trying to build that ecosystem around these startups. And I think most countries outside of Africa might have this ecosystem, but it's also necessary to think about how healthy is that ecosystem. So how is it helping the startups scale and grow into a better company and a better institution that they could be?
Yeah, I would say, as last thought, first of all, always stay authentic. But then when you wake up in the morning, think of your company as a serious business. Do I do everything right with regards to, and I sum it up again, leadership, execution, strategy, and cash? And at the end of the day, never forget your customer.
Okay. Sandra.
I didn't mention I'm a partner also of the Conscious Capitalism movement. And I think as a closing remark and connecting also with what Princess Beatrice was telling us before, I think the key is to not to lose your soul on the way, your own, your people's soul, and the company. So if you're really connected to your mission and to that purpose that you were mentioning before, you will find the right way, the right moment to do it, and you will be able to select the best partners to work with during this path.
Okay. Do you have a last little bit, Mitra? Roberto, go ahead.
Yeah, as a last comment, I think I agree with everything that has been said. Those are all great points. I would like to make just a couple of additional remarks that connect what I heard. So, first off, starting a company, which in these years we call startups, it's great on so many levels, but it doesn't fit everyone. So I think that's important because it's good to try, but if that has to be your journey, entrepreneurship, it takes a certain dimension and adds certain dimension to your kind of work life. So I think it's very important along the journey to really talk to people that have been successful as much as people that have failed, have learned along the journey, because it takes a very different way of doing things and behaving. And it is something that not necessarily you have to do. It's amazing when that is in your fit, but it's not, I would say, mandatory. And I think that's important to consider. The other thing that I want to mention, startups are super important because I think it's almost the only way we will create new companies and new business in the world, and will advance the previous model of the way corporations have been, starting. That's why it's important we have high respect for that. Just to echo what Mitra said before, we also are incredibly respectful of startups. When I hear things like the startup tour or this kind of valley zoo visits, not only we don't do, but we totally disagree on that. Those are young companies, and as young companies are even kind of fragile in a way. So they need a lot of care from the capital side, from the big corporation side, because for a big corporation it can be just a meeting. For a startup, it is the meeting. So it's important that you go as a big corporation in the meeting with a purpose, with a potential outcome. If you go in the meeting knowing it is just the 2 hours to tick the box that you met startups, that's not going to fly for you as a big corporation, and it's really not right for the startup itself. So given I'm sure we have big corporations in the room, I really encourage you to cultivate startups in the right way.
I'm going to invite Princess Beatrice to step back to the stage. We're out of time, but I want to acknowledge that you kicked us off with exactly the right note, Princess Beatrice. We have so much more that we can share. I want to thank you for coming. Mitra, would you like to say a last word to the crowd? And thank you all.
Very quick last word. I'm also dyslexic, so it's very important that you know that if people with disabilities can make it in the world, think about if you don't have one, how successful you could be. And I just want to riff off of Roberto. You don't have to be a startup founder if you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. It's in my DNA. I started 2 companies, and I'm an entrepreneur inside of a large company. So if you don't want to take the risk and it doesn't fit your lifestyle to be a startup founder or part of a startup, be part of an organization that welcomes you as an entrepreneur.
Yes. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Princess Beatrice, and our great panel. Thank you all.